Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. All right, so today we're talking about the practice of mindfulness. And I bet you think I'm going to talk about meditation, don't you? Huh? Not this time. Not this time. But of course, mindfulness, one of the most basic things in mindfulness is the practice of meditation, because meditation brings us back to our beautiful selves. Meditation is the thing that stirs the pot and brings us back to center. And I say that all the time because when we're so scattered and so hurrying up and going all the time, we very often lose our sense of who we are. You know, we just feel like we're just here to wipe somebody's butt, to do grocery shopping, walk the dog, and, all the other things that need to get done. We lose our sense of self. And when we are aware of ourselves with a small practice of meditation, it makes all the difference in the world. So that's why I want you to think about this as far as meditation is concerned. And don't worry, we're going there tomorrow. That's what Thirsty Thursday is all about, is the practice of meditation. But today I've got 3 other practices for you, things that I've looked in it just in my own life. What are the things that have lit me up? What are the things that have changed from being frantic to being mindful? Because I've lived in a way, I would say frantic was the underpinnings of my life, constantly. I was a bit of a hand wringer. I learned that well from my mother. But I also felt that life was just passing me by, and I was just, stuck in this place of just feeling empty and sad and not enough for anyone, including God. Isn't that terrible? But that's the place where a lot of us start, until we start to understand that mindfulness is the path toward that vibrancy that we want. Vibrant lives don't just happen. They're planned for. They're created on purpose for purpose, because so are we. That's how it works. So when we understand how mindfulness is a whole different way of thinking about things, we talked about that yesterday. Instead of being reactive, to start being a noticer. Instead of being somebody who gets into the weeds about things and starts hand wringing, we do things just a little bit different. We experience life a little bit differently. And the cool thing is, this is what I found in my research too. Remember how I told you how complaining shrinks your brain, right? Remember I've told you that, how complaining shrinks your brain? Well, mindfulness shrinks your amygdala. Drop the mic. Yes! Your amygdala is the fear center of your brain. The amygdala holds you back from a vibrant life. And the thing is, it shrinks it, and it creates a pattern of having your amygdala release those feel-good hormones like serotonin and dopamine. Boom. Yeah, we're going to have a meditation party tomorrow, Sarah. We're going to just group the whole thing together. I still have a show to do. So I like this. And I also read too that having a practice of mindfulness as well also helps with pain. Did you know that? That when we're mindful, we're experiencing less pain than those who are not. It's just really bizarre how your brain is going to reward you with good things for doing the right things. Isn't that fabulous? I love that so much, because it really does help to even reinforce it, underline it, and make you sure that you're going in the right direction. That's how incredible having a mindful practice is. So here's a couple of things that three things that I have done that has just changed my life, besides the meditation part. That's tomorrow. That's a whole show. But these three things, and I think all wise women need to step into these things because it makes all the difference in the world. And it's reading, writing, and actively listening. Okay, those three things. Now I'm going to go through these and how they've made such a difference and what I mean by each one of them. And I think that's going to maybe help you. So if you're note takers, here we go. You ready for this? Reading, writing, and actively listening. So number one is reading with a pencil and being intentional about your reading. I've always been a reader, always. I mean, I used to go to the library, walk there barefoot by myself, when I was in 5th and 6th grade, and I read everything I could get my hands on. I was always a bookworm. I used to fancy myself as being in a French boarding school or Swiss boarding school or something, and trying to learn French and all this kind of stuff. I had a very active imagination as a child, but I was a very avid reader, and I would go get 6 books in the summer, bring them home, read the 6 books, take them back, and go get 6 more because that's all you could get. It was really great. But it was a lot of fiction. And then later on, as I started getting into just a little bit of work on myself, I started with some personal development books, and I read a lot of them. When I started reading them with a pencil and being intentional about the whole thing, expecting when I opened the book that words would jump out at me, phrases would jump out at me, ideas and concepts would be part of my new thinking, then that's when things really started to change. That's when I started to devour books and come away from them feeling different and charged and changing my mind on things that previously were things that held me back. When you can change your mind from things that held you back, and that means, one, you're teachable. Congratulations. There's a lot of people out there that aren't teachable, by the way. And number two, it also means that there's so much more that we need to know. The more you know, the more we really need to know. The more I read, the more I realize I know this much. And there's so much out there to learn and to find out about. So reading like this, actively reading and allowing things to jump out at you and to expect that to happen helps to form new thoughts, new neural connections. It changes the neuroplasticity of your brain. It expands your beautiful self as well. And your beautiful self is the part of you that houses your soul, your empathy, the Holy Spirit, your higher self, all that goodness that we need to nurture on a regular basis, because that's who we truly are, not just a pair of jeans or a color of a lipstick or running errands who we are is right here, And when I do my meditations, by the way, I always put my hand over my heart and feel my beating heart, because that's my connection to God, I know it sounds weird and woo-woo, but we're going weird and woo-woo tomorrow, so tune in. It'll be fun. But we get to mine through our reading nuggets. We get to mine through our reading all these beautiful things that land just right. When we're in expectation of these things, it happens. We pick up the right book. We see and read the right phrase, and it's just that aha that we really needed. That's mindful reading, and it's a whole different situation when you sit down and you're ready, and you ready yourself to read. This is what happens. Number two is writing, and I would go with the journaling, right? Journaling. And the reason why is because journaling really helps all of this reading that you've been doing land. From that, you grab a concept, you grab a word and just say, this has just been doing something to me. And rather than just have it go around and around in your brain, when you take the time to actually write it down in your journal, and when we're talking journal, I'm not talking about this journal. This journal is a working journal. This is a planner and for goals, right? Your journal is just something cheap that you bought off of, I buy stacks of them for $1 each at the dollar store. Just the regular old, notebooks, little notebooks. They're sewn together in black and white or red and white spotted covers. Nothing fancy. But what they are is they're filled to the brim with things that have been moving me heart, mind, body, and soul. Things that make me think of things differently and see things just a little bit differently. This is how we not only land them, but this is the big allowance. That's what happens when you do it, because it allows for ideas and concepts to be developed in your own thinking and your own way so that you can relate to them. It doesn't help to have somebody else's fluffy words, You need to have your own words to go with it. It doesn't matter if this writer was just extraordinary and you're just like, ooh, I really admire that writing. If it doesn't land for you, and if it doesn't have a life-changing message for you that you can translate into your own speaking, your own words, then it doesn't work. We don't want to admire as much as we want to articulate and have that be a part of who we are. So I just think that this is really great. And it also allows for the awareness that we're trying to get into our lives. Awareness is what creates mindfulness. Awareness is what creates the noticing. Awareness helps us with our goals. It helps us with our affirmations. And it helps us with the release of all that creativity that you and I both have inside of us. And I don't ever want to hear from a single one of you. I'm holding my mama finger up to you, by the way. That, oh, I'm not creative. Don't you ever say that to me. Yes, you are. It may be lying dormant, but it's there. Remember, you are created on purpose and for purpose, fearfully and wonderfully made. That means the creative quota is in you just as much as it is in me and everyone else. Okay? Deal? Pinkies? So that journaling stuff, man, it just takes reading and it couples with reading, hand in glove kind of thing. And it just makes everything beautiful. It does. And it helps to gel these ideas, these concepts. It helps to make them real. And especially when it's coming from your own handwriting. And that's why I encourage over and over and over again, when you handwrite, you're also, I want you to think, you're also wiring your brain at the same time. There's an actual nerve that goes from your hand all the way up into your brain. And it works that much better. And when you've got your thumb and your opposable finger right there doing the work, you should Google that. It'll floor you. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, after all. You say that, not anymore, Mama Finger. Okay, so number 3 then is listening actively. I think this is such a lost art because we oftentimes listen to respond, and listening to respond does not get us to the same place of actually listening and hearing what somebody else is saying to us. If you've ever been in the place where you're hearing somebody tell you a story and you see their pain and you feel their pain, that's empathy. Is sorely missing in this country right now. It's sorely missing around the world. And empathy is a higher level emotion and a higher level degree of living, really, where we can understand as much as we can what it is to walk in someone else's shoes without shaming them, without degrading them, without talking over them or through them, but instead listening, hearing what they have to say. And being just like those creatures in Avatar and saying, I see you. Meaning you're beautiful, you're important, and you're just as much created in God's image as I am. And you're just as much fearfully made and magnificently created by a God in heaven who felt it necessary to have you as I am. This is how we acknowledge one another, by actively listening. You know what it feels like to be actively listened to. Do you practice it yourself? When we do this, We are automatically putting our relationship pattern into a better place, right? Automatically. It's that fast. Your relationships change, and I'm not talking about like, dealing with somebody who's maybe you have a fractured relationship with. You can still practice. You can still practice actively listening. But I'm talking about like your child. Have you ever just gotten down on their level and just eyeball to eyeball and just said, you know what? Yeah, I hear that. And just tell me about this. I remember my daughter actually told me that was one of the things that she really remembers about me is getting down on her level, eyeball to eyeball. And I remember one time getting down on my kids' level, eyeball to eyeball. They were both very little. I had 2 in 2 years. So they were both young at the same time, 21 months apart, and sitting there bawling my eyes out with them, apologizing because I was being such a crappy mother that day, short-tempered, short-fused. It hit me, though, that I wasn't actively listening. I was talking over them. I was running them down. And I was too interested in my own agenda than to be interested in what they needed. And at their tender ages, they needed something from their mama. And it wasn't that. And that broke me. And that should break us all, because when we are not doing this, we're fracturing our relationships. We're not giving people our best. I want you to give yourself your best, and then I want you to turn around and give it out generously, abundantly, because you'll never run out. When you treat people like this, you'll never run out. That love will just grow and will grow and will grow. And your connections will be delicious, warm, wonderful ones. They'll feel cherished. And that's what we want. Don't you want to feel cherished? I know you do. Of course you do. Don't you want to hear somebody say, you are special? I'm so glad you're in my life. Of course you do. This is what we all want, but this is how we develop this. This is how our empathy grows. This is how our understanding for others grows. We don't dismiss anymore. We don't put off and we don't, that's not for me. Instead, we love more. We give more, because we're coming from a place of mindfulness and we're listening with the intention of listening, not responding, not being quicker, not putting it down or dismiss, none of that, but doing this. It changes everything. So these 3 things, these are the big 3 that I think that just light me up and make all the difference in the world. And you could even take this for those of you too, Lucy, of course, because you are cherished. Yeah, and I'm so glad you're in my life, Margaret. All of you are. Margot said listen is her word of the year. Isn't that so impactful? But for those of you who live alone and whatever, you practice this with music. Now, for those of you who were at Full Bloom, do you remember the meditation music that I played? How beautiful that was? And I think I said this. If I didn't, shame on me. But I think I did. But I said, listen to the cello. It was a piano cello playing, and just hear the cello for just a minute. When we actively listen, we just hear the one thing. There's a great appreciation that comes with that too. And that appreciation, I'm telling you, when we're doing these kind of things, with our relationships, this kind of listening, we create an experience for us with other people, for ourselves, and even just sitting there listening to beautiful music. We sit there and mindfully, actively listen. So to me, all of these things bring in a whole new level of living. It elevates everything, and it changes your mind on wanting to go back to all that stuff that was so low vibe. Who here went and clicked on the link for the sand vibration? Did anybody see that? Yeah, connect the dots with all of that, because that's such a picture of the complexity of who we are as human beings and how we're created by God himself. This kind of thing, it just, to me, It just says, it's yelling to me, look, Leanne, you were created in God's own image. This is who you are. This vibrational thing, because we're all vibrational beings. That's how we're made. That's our energy coming out. That's how it works. It's absolutely fascinating. And we serve an amazing and wonderful God who thinks of these little details. And I just think he just smiles and just says, you don't even know the half of it. You don't even know the half of it. So what do you say? What if we all made a decision today that being wise women means that we are readers, active, intentional readers, and that we're looking for the nuggets, and we know that they're going to just spring right out of the page to us. And number two, that we're writers, all of us. Maybe it's not the great American novel, but that's not what we're after. We're after just being able to capture these things that we read and put our feelings to pen and put it out there and just allow it to be there and captured on the page. And then if we actively listen the way we're talking about today, if we actively listen, can you imagine the elevation of our relationships, not only to those around us, but the relationship to ourselves? We see ourselves with a different light. We see everybody with different lens. The love and the care, the empathy, the understanding, it's not normal of this world. You know that. You've been dismissed a lot, haven't you? I have. I won't be dismissed again. No, I hang with my people. And my people know me by name, and I know you by name. And you're important to me. That's why I call you out every time I see you. I want you to know I see you and I love you. You're important. You're important. Thanks for joining me today. Peace be with you. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.